Hey, how's it going, guys? Today I wanted to discuss some Doom and all its glory because lately I've found Doom a very interesting and fun game to play. And Doom is a game that most people have played or could give their own opinion on it or at least know what it is. But in this video, I wanted to give my input on my opinion of Doom. And what I think can be very different from my experience with Doom is I never played it when it came out, and I can't probably talk about how revolutionary it was at the time and how the graphics might have been ahead of its time. But I did play it when I was really young, like 7 or 8 years old. But that was way before I should have been playing it, and I probably didn't even know what was going on. But at the time, the game was already out for a while once I played it. But Doom was actually like the second first-person shooter I ever played before Duke Nukem 3D being my first. And something Doom did to me over Duke was have like the horror aspect that made me think of the scary demons in Doom. And even up to this date, the game can be kind of scary if you don't remember like each level perfectly. But anyway, let's get into discussion of Doom, and I could start this video out in many ways, but I'm going to choose by explaining the game a little bit because the game came out like over 20 years ago, and I'm sure some of you are young or might not know what Doom is or just might have never played it. And you see, Doom is a very simple game where the main objective is to kill anything that moves and find the end of the level. And that's pretty much it, which is what I partly think makes the game so good, but go in depth in so many other ways. But anyway, I could get in a little more depth, like I said, with, collecting all the key cards or finding secrets. But I'm going to assume most of you know about Doom, but if you don't, I just explained the main idea of it pretty well. But what I'm really going to start with is my experience with Doom. And like I said, I played it first when I was really young, but I'm going to skip over that because it was so long ago and I barely remember. I just remember playing the game at all. But other than that, my first experience with Doom was a few months ago, and I played Doom 1 again after the Doom 2016 one, Doom 4. It was fun, but after beating the game, it made me want to play the original Doom again. So I bought the Doom 3 BFG onto Steam, and that comes with Doom 1, 2, and 3, and all the DLCs for Doom 2 and 3. So what I did was I replayed Doom 1 and Doom 2, and it was actually really fun experiencing the game again for the first time, kind of. And everything wasn't really that new to me at first. It felt like on every level, I felt I knew something about the level, or I just wasn't too surprised with most things. But then in Doom 2, it started to become more vague and it became a new experience again. But it's kind of weird. It's like I was having the feeling of nostalgia without originally playing the game back in the 90s. Even though there is a little bit of nostalgia and the game feeling old, it was kind of weird. And I think I feel this type of nostalgia because I understand how important this game was and how big of a deal it was back in the day when it first came out. And I felt this nostalgia with other old games I've played like Duke Nukem 3D or Wolfenstein because, they have that old feel and I know they're important games. But the nostalgia for Doom is different, but I think that's because it's not just nostalgia. Like I said, I never played the game back in the day when it was a huge deal. But I think knowing some of the history of Doom gives it its own classic feel, knowing it was the game that brought the first-person shooter, as a genre into the mainstream, and that it kind of invented multiplayer deathmatch, or just for the simple fact that Doom is one of the most revolutionary FPS games ever, depending on who you ask, and that's a pretty debatable statement, but I think most people will either tell you like Doom, Wolfenstein, Quake, Duke, or even Halo are the most important FPS games, but I do think none of those opinions would be wrong, but I think Doom is just the one that started it all, and it's still very enjoyable today. Now, we've already talked about how important Doom was, and how big of a deal Doom is in the first-person shooter genre, but now I'd like to talk about my personal favorite things about Doom. And just to throw it out there, all my favorite things about Doom is the weapons, the enemies, the genius level design, the slight horror feel in the game, and finally the difficulty. Now let's break these things down and let's start with the weapons, because weapons are very important to a first-person shooter. Obviously, it's in the name, shooter. You need a good gun, and the most important things about guns to me in a video game is if they feel effective. You know, you want your guns to feel strong, and your gun options. You want to know what type of gun variety you have, like what guns you actually use or what guns you'll use the most. And in Doom, there are originally 7 weapons, not including the fists. And then they added a super shotgun in Doom 2 to make it 8 weapons. And I think that is a plenty amount of weapons to have on you at all times during a campaign, considering most games nowadays let you have 2 or maybe 3 weapons. So I think 8 is a good number of weapons. Also, each gun can be used in a different situation, so the guns are very fun to play with. And except for the pistol, all the guns are good and they could deal some damage. The gun you'll use most is either the shotgun in Doom 1 or the super shotgun in Doom 2. And at least for me, I also use the chain gun a lot too, because it's a really strong, reliable weapon just like the shotgun. And pretty often you'll get to mess with the really strong weapons like the plasma gun and the rocket launcher and the BFG. And I'm gonna say right now, guys, just to sum it up, I think Doom has the best set of weapons in a game, in my opinion. And what I mean by that is just that Doom's weapons are the most fun to play around with and use correctly at certain times. I also think the early Halo games, Halo 1 and 2, have really enjoyable weapons. I actually think older games have really fun guns to shoot. I don't know why. That's probably why I've been enjoying a lot of older shooters lately. But anyway, enough with the weapons. Now I want to talk about one of the more important things in Doom, and that is the level design. And I think I can confidently say that Doom has the best level design of any game I've ever played. Just so you guys get an idea of what I think good levels are, I think Duke Nukem 3D, Return to Castle Wolfenstein, and most of the early Call of Duty games have unique levels. And what really amazes me with Doom's levels and the atmosphere is that the game came out in 1993, and the game has so much more depth and goes deeper into the levels as you play, versus Wolfenstein 3D, which came out a year before by the same people who made Doom, which feels more arcadey and didn't have as much life than Doom. And to really understand Doom's level design, you just gotta play the game all the way through. But anyway, I would also like to get into the enemies in Doom. And I really like the demons because they can be tough to deal with, but easy to master. Like if someone played Doom for the first time and came up against, I don't know, a Cyber Demon or maybe a Hell Knight, they'd be fucked no matter what gun they had. Maybe except for the BFG, they'd be dead. But if you've played the game for a while and understand the demon's movements and attacks, you could kill a Baron of Hell with a super shotgun if you really wanted to. But overall, it's great how all the demons are different from each other and are all unique and have their own movements. But anyway, the last few things I want to say about Doom is it's one of the few games that challenges me in a fair way, because most games nowadays just add a ton more enemies that can melt you if you raise the difficulty, and it's more frustrating than anything. But Doom actually gets more challenging with watching your health and ammo more as you crank up the difficulty. But the last thing I wanted to bring up is the slight horror and atmosphere to Doom. And I think Doom has the perfect amount of difficulty and horror to make it a challenging, tense, and exciting game. And that's where I stand on Doom. I just felt the need to talk about this game because somewhat recently I really got back into this game and I find it really interesting. Also, if anyone is curious what I think about the graphics, I think they are good. You know, talking about the original Doom, I just like the feel to it, and it doesn't look outdated enough where it's hard to look at, and I actually kind of like them. Also, my opinions on the other Dooms, Doom 3 and 4, I think Doom is fun, but doesn't keep to the roots of the original Doom enough and kind of turns into more of a horror game too much, but it's still pretty fun. And I think Doom 4 is great, not as good as the originals, but still does an amazing job of sticking to the roots of fast-paced action and a hellish setting. But that's all my opinions on the Doom series. Mostly Doom 1 and 2, but that's everything. Maybe I should do this with another game series. Let me know if that'd be a good idea by commenting. That sounds like it'd be fun. Maybe I could do that with Halo or Call of Duty, because I've played pretty much all of those in those series. But maybe that's something for another day. But yeah, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video on an old classic. Leave a like if you did. Subscribe if you're new. I'm the Only Beast 13, and I'm out.